Welcome to Lotus Health Education and Wellness Empowerment through Health Enlightenment. Continuing with our video series on some of the benefits of the carotenoids to our overall health, we're going to take a look today at another one of the carotenoid family members, lycopene. Most of us are familiar with some of the health benefits with lycopene surrounding specifically men's health, which with this month being Men's Health Month, it's an important thing for us to take a look at. However, lycopene actually has a lot of other health benefits. In addition to some of the anti-cancer benefits that it's believed to have regarding prostate cancer and overall men's health, it's also found to be beneficial with the other topic related to our health series with breast cancer and breast health. There are studies that have shown that certain levels of lycopene in the consumptions of certain types of food are very beneficial to helping reduce your overall cancer risk. In addition, though, to some of the cancer benefits associated with lycopene, it's also been found that it has cardiovascular benefits with impact to things like your blood pressure as well as lipid levels. And it also has anti-inflammatory properties, which also may be good for both the cardiac as well as cancer benefits and for certain other aspects of our health. And like many other members of the carotenoid family, lycopene has also been found to have the antioxidant properties that we talked about in our previous carotenoid videos. I'm going to drop the link down below so that if you want to take a look at that again, where we talk a little bit more detail about the antioxidant benefits, you can refer to that. So, in terms of consuming foods, where exactly can we get lycopene? One particular food source is going to be pretty familiar to most of us, but there are actually additional food items that we can get lycopene from. Lycopene is a pigment and is often found in either red, pink, or orange colored fruits, vegetables, as well as certain types of algae. So anything with that coloration that contains the lycopene pigment is going to be a fairly decent source of lycopene. Of course, like other members of the carotenoid families that we've talked about in previous videos and we'll talk about in some upcoming ones, you can get lycopene as a supplement. So you can take it as a tablet or capsule with varying degrees and percentages of absorbable lycopene to gain some of the health benefits. But this wouldn't be Lotus Health if we didn't take a look at some of the natural food sources for it. And in today's video, we're actually going to take a look at a recipe that includes my favorite source of lycopene, tomatoes. So let's take a look at some of those food items right now. Most of us here in the United States, at least, are familiar with tomatoes as being one of the most, if not the most popular source of lycopene in our diet. It's considered a staple in things, of course, like salads and certain other types of foods, as well as from certain other countries. And in today's video, we're actually going to take a look at a recipe to help us make our own from scratch spaghetti sauce using our friend, the tomato here. However, in addition to tomatoes, melons, like you see here with watermelon, are also another excellent source of lycopene. This tends to be something that most of us might not think of, but eating melons, particularly watermelon, can provide an excellent source of lycopene, as well as providing you a serving of fruit for the day. Apricots are also considered another great source. We have the fruit itself right here, and one of my favorite apricot snacks. These are a nice little source of both seeds as well as fiber, and of course, apricots, which always remind me of my favorite movie, Apricots and Honey. If you don't get the reference, it's okay. And guavas. Again, anything with that red, orange, or pink fruit coloration is going to be another excellent source. This is a guava nectar, which is very popular here in my house. You want to be careful if you're a diabetic or have certain other types of health conditions. Nectars and juices overall, while very good and also having some great health benefits themselves, can also be high sugar containing sources. You want to make sure that if you have certain conditions like diabetes or other types of metabolic or endocrine disorders, that you are very careful about your daily intake of nectars and juices, which can be very high in both natural as well as added sugars. So here we have a nice little assortment of some of our lycopene sources, but with today's video, we're going to take a look now specifically at tomatoes, again, very popular here in the US, as being a source of lycopene with our from scratch tomato sauce or spaghetti sauce. So let's go ahead and wash up and head to the kitchen. For most of us that make pasta at home, our idea of spaghetti sauce tends to be go to the supermarket, pick up a bottle of our favorite brand of spaghetti sauce off of the shelf, come home, boil a pot of pasta, you have a ready-made dinner. And in many cases, this is perfectly fine. A lot of companies that make spaghetti sauce that most of us purchase from our local supermarkets or order online are becoming very good about being mindful with things like preservatives, using non-GMO ingredients, trying to control certain additives into the ingredients that they use to make their sauces. However, with many of us, particularly if we have certain chronic health conditions like diabetes, hypertension, and certain other types of endocrine or cardiovascular diseases, you have to be very careful about things like the preservative content in your spaghetti sauce. Sugar is a very popular ingredient that's pretty ubiquitous in a lot of things that we're eating, but in particular things where the makers want to give it that little bit of sweetness to try and make it appealing to us and make us keep eating it. Sugars often find themselves in a lot of foods where you wouldn't otherwise expect it. And being something that's based off of tomatoes, which is going to have a certain normal amount of sugar in and of itself, you want to be mindful of added sugars in your foods, and that includes in your spaghetti sauce. So with those things in mind, as well as stuff like salt content and other things like that, we're going to do a very simple spaghetti sauce recipe today to give you an idea that while it might sound daunting to talk about making your own spaghetti sauce at home, it's really not that bad. I went ahead and put on a pot of pasta to boil. I like to use this brand of pasta here. It's one that I find in my supermarket close by. It's an Italian-based company that makes a bronze die-cut pasta, which is very good texture-wise for holding on to the sauce that we're gonna make today. But of course, you can use any pasta that you'd like to be able to make your pasta dish. So I've already got that going on in a boil. I've turned the heat down just a little bit so it doesn't create little special effects in our video today. And as you can see here, I've already put on a little bit of oil and about a tablespoonful of squeezable minced garlic here. So it gives it a nice aromatic quality to it. And what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna use strained tomatoes. So I like to use this company. They have an organic variety to the products that they make. They do make a proper tomato sauce that is very liquid, but in this case, I like to have a little bit more substance with my tomato sauce, so we're using the strained tomatoes today. So we're gonna put a little bit in here. And mind you, with today's recipe, I am gonna try to use as much exact quantities as possible. So in the description below, you're gonna see the information regarding the amount of the different ingredients that we're using. But keep in mind again, as we talked about at the top of this recipe segment, that the whole purpose with today's recipe is going to be for us to adjust these things based upon taste, and then of course our health conditions and any concerns that we have there. I'm gonna adjust the heat just a little bit more on my pasta again, but this looks like it's pretty much ready to go. So we're gonna set this off to the side. And then on a low to medium heat setting, depending on your particular stove, you're gonna go ahead and add to that thin layer coating of your olive oil and about a tablespoon of this minced garlic, the entire contents of one of our strained tomato sauces or whatever base you particularly like. Now, I'm a big cheese lover. I love dairy products in general, but cheese in particular. Italian food, as you're probably gonna come to notice with this video series and the recipes that we'll use, Italian food is my absolute favorite type of food in the world. So I'm gonna go ahead and use two different types of cheese here, a Parmigiano Reggiano and then a home-style Parmesan cheese to finish it off. You can add additional things here like fresh basil, which you can cut up with like a pair of kitchen scissors or chop on a cutting board and add to this. I love basil as a part of this. So again, these are just some ideas, fresh tomatoes, in addition to your strained tomato to give it a little bit more bite to it. Peppers, there's all sorts of things that you can add to your sauce to give it some body and the flavor that you want. But again, with today's video, we're just gonna keep it very direct and simple. So I'm gonna use a bit of all-purpose seasoning, again, about like a tablespoon and a half of this. Make sure that you're mindful of any salt or other concerns that you may have. A little bit of the red sauce popping up there. We're gonna go ahead and stir that in. And you'll notice that I'll add certain things in segments as we go through, and this is something again that depending on your particular taste, you may want to make adjustments on. Tomato sauce is popping all over the place here and not cooperating. So you can sample it as you're going through and make little adjustments. I may add just a little bit more garlic to mine here. And for now, we're gonna go ahead and kind of hold off on adding any more of the all-purpose seasoning. So again, we already had, as part of the base, about a tablespoonful of the garlic. I'm gonna add just a little bit more here now that we've cooked it up more. And if you just want the essence or the flavor of the garlic in and of itself without actually having these chunks like what I'm doing here, because even when they're minced up small like this, you're gonna still bite into garlic, which I'm okay with, but if you're not, you can actually use the whole segments of garlic, put them in and cook them down a little bit in your olive oil before you put in your sauce. And that way you'll get a bit of that flavor, but without having the actual garlic in there. So about 1 or 2 little segments of the garlic, cook it down until you start to kind of get that aroma and you can, you know, get that taste from it. And then you can remove them and go ahead and add your sauce. So again, all of these little variations are things that you can do when you're doing your sauce. Another popular thing, much like folks do when they scratch make barbecue sauce, is that some people will like to add sugar, either the brown sugar, which is healthier of all the sugars and how they go, or the white granulated sugar. I'm gonna stay away from that for today's video. And again, just to be mindful, if you're a diabetic patient or have certain other types of endocrine conditions, you also might wanna be kind of precautious about that as well. Without question, adding sugar to tomato sauce and pretty much anything is gonna make it taste a lot nicer, but we wanna be mindful to be healthy and kind of keep the sugars under control. So we're just gonna let that simmer for a little bit. And I'm gonna go ahead in the meantime and add about a tablespoonful of our Parmigiano Reggiano. So you'll notice that yes, a little bit of excess is falling in there. I'm not gonna complain because like I mentioned, I love cheese. And we're gonna go ahead and mix that as well. And to any proper Italians out there, please don't be too upset at me about putting in extra spices and things like that to the tomato sauce. Again, you can make the adjustments as you'd like, but we're gonna go ahead and start getting something served up here so we can sample our homemade spaghetti sauce. I'm gonna finish it off in a little bit with a different texture of Parmesan cheese, which is this one here. It's a home style kind of grated off the block Parmesan. And I like the texture that that gives in the finish. We'll give this a taste in just a moment to see if it needs a little bit more seasoning, but again, you want to be mindful that while all-purpose seasoning is great, it is going to contain a certain amount of sodium in there depending on the particular brand that you use. You want to be careful if you're on certain types of medications about salt substitutes and things like their potassium content. So always make sure that anything that you're doing, if there's a dietitian that's part of the team that takes care of you, your PCP or whomever it is that looks after things like your blood pressure or other types of cardiac conditions, that you let them know if you're using any sort of salt substitutes or any types of spices that have substitute anywhere in the title, just to make sure that you're not getting too much of certain things that maybe you shouldn't be. Just the right amount of spice. So we're gonna go ahead and plate up a little bit of our pasta and get our sauce on top. So we're gonna get a little bit of our just finished up rigatoni. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off our sauce here, and we'll get everything plated up. You do want to be very careful, as you're seeing here happening to me, that of course, like a lot of other things when we boil it, that you're going to have a hot liquid splashing. And here as a finisher at the end, you can do things like, if you've used basil in your recipe, you can of course chop up or snip a few little more pieces of fresh basil on top, give it really great flavor. I absolutely love basil. If I could have put my hands on some fresh basil for today's video, it absolutely would have made its way into this. And then we're gonna top it off, like I mentioned, with a little bit of this home style grated Parmesan. You want to keep in mind anytime you're going to be adding any sorts of ingredients, whether embedded in your actual cooking or as a finisher, like what you see me doing here, that you're always mindful of anything like the sodium content, the fat, any added sugars, things like that, just to make sure that if you're on any sort of a diet plan for whatever health conditions you have, that you're keeping it within whatever is recommended for you to keep you well. We're going to grab a fork and try our homemade spaghetti sauce. So that smell is great. Nice. So there you have it. Homemade spaghetti sauce. Make whatever adjustments you'd like. If anything, you're probably going to make a better sauce than me. So thank you so much for joining us today at Lotus Health, Education and Wellness, Empowerment through Health Enlightenment. If you liked today's video, remember to hit the like and subscribe button. Please feel free to leave a comment if you want to see any additional content coming up. But thank you so much for joining us, and take care until the next time. Thank you for watching this video from Lotus Health, Education and Wellness. We hope that you enjoyed it and find the content useful on your healthcare journey. We want to remind you that while eating healthy, like a lot of the recommendations that we'll make in these videos, exercising, using certain supplements and medications recommended to you by your healthcare team or that you hear about in general, may be beneficial in many ways, that it's always important to also continue to work with your healthcare team that's responsible for looking after you. Whether that's a primary care visit or a specialist, always make sure to follow the guidance that they provide. Try to keep those regularly scheduled appointments. And while we appreciate the trust and the respect that you may put into a lot of the content that we'll provide here on our channel, always make sure to run that by them anytime you're going to be incorporating anything new into your routine. And also to be mindful that even with our best efforts and all of the things that we'll try to do to keep ourselves healthy, certain things like our genetics, the environment that we live in, other health conditions that we have, and a lot of other things that we may not know about ourselves are unfortunately going to impact our health. Don't get discouraged by that. Always make sure to continue on trying to live your healthiest and being well every day, and follow up with your healthcare team. We hope that you do enjoy our videos. If you do, remember to push that like button and also subscribe. We'll be putting out a lot more content, and we hope to see you back here for empowerment through health enlightenment.